Mm. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, this is Second Ezra, chapter 9, verse 1. He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. All right. I'm going to start off by giving all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushai Bahashem, Ruach HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and have taught me this word in truth and sincerity. Peace and mercy to the elect, starting with 144,000. That's also pushing this word in truth and sincerity across the four corners of the earth. And the rest of the elect, peace and mercy to you and your household. I'm your fellow servant Amath of GMS Toronto, coming at you once again with another live lesson. Okay, it's going to be another edition of Doomsday Prophecy. Doomsday Prophecies, right? Connecting world events to Bible prophecies to strengthen the faith of the elect of the nation of Israel. Okay? And that's what we're all about, man. It's hastening the day, right? Two things you should be looking forward to if you're a sincere believer is the downfall of this wicked system and the return of our Lord Yahushua. Simple and plain. All right, and in this edition of Doomsday Prophecies, as you can see, the title is, what I make? Yeah, Israel's new petrodollar. Okay, Israel's new petrodollar. So let's get right into it. Shouldn't be too long of a lesson. I got this clip here from Kim Iverson. Okay, his title says, "Oh, Israel just built the new petrodollar." Okay. Or you know what? Actually, well, I'll change it later. Okay, so anyways, fair use, fair use, fair use. I'm not receiving any monetization for this video whatsoever. I'm only sharing this video for educational purposes only. All right, so fair use, fair use, fair use. Let's go ahead and listen.
Rise of Pax Judaica. We're watching the real-time rise of Pax Judaica. Israel has just built the new petrodollar, and they are testing it out. Now, it is not the typical petrodollar. It's not an oil for currency exchange. It's nothing like that. It is instead a tech, locking down nations into their tech and their surveillance and rebuilding them and ensuring that they are dependent and reliant on their tech and their surveillance, which means that they then have a kill switch and they then leverage all their power. So what exactly is the indication that they've just built and that they are now testing their new petrodollar? And interestingly, it is Venezuela. So recently, a delegation of U.S. congressional members, 4 of them, went to Venezuela. They were selected to be the delegation to represent the United States Congress. It was sponsored by AIPAC. And the representatives that showed up to this were Randy Fine, one of the biggest Zionists in Congress.
And we're going to skip ahead here. But yeah, and obviously this is important because this digital infrastructure that's being built throughout the four corners of the earth, especially here in North America, aka Babylon the Great, as well as North America entirely. It's all centered around AI, obviously artificial intelligence, but also one of the major prophecies that we look for, that we're looking at, all right, is the mark of the beast. I'm actually just going to read that real quick. Right, the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip. Okay, and that's really the only prophecy that's keeping the rest of the prophecies in a bottleneck. All right, in a bottleneck, so to speak, a bottleneck squeeze or type squeeze. Once they make that mandatory, okay, everything's going to be happening super fast, man. We can see ourselves, all right, lowering of the elect out of here within a matter of weeks to months. Okay, I say weeks because so much is going to be happening, right? And the more things happen, all right, the faster time goes, all right. So let's get this. This is Revelation 13 and I'll start at 14. It says Revelation 13 and 14. And deceiveth them, okay, that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, right? It's artificial intelligence, which had power to do, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, right? This global system, okay? So the whole world can see it. Saying to them that dwell on, it's on executive order, just got breaking news. It's official. President Trump has signed an executive order restricting the use of mail-in bailouts. Okay, whatever. It says here, saying to them that dwell on the earth, and we're always looking, man. We're always hastening the day, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. All right, and that was ancient Roman Empire. America became Babylon the Great, as well as spiritually Rome and spiritually Egypt, has been constructed, all right, after the ancient Roman Empire. And now, right before our eyes, it's going through a new construction, and it's becoming a digital Tower of Babel, if you will, a digital Rome, a digital Egypt. All right, it's all about this digital. Well, rather, I'll call it a satanic digital system. All right, a satanic digital system. Continuing on, it says, verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. By the way of what? By the way of his policies and by the way of his military. Okay, as you're going to see as we get into this clip, he had power to give life onto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Okay. It says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their hand or in their foreheads, right? That's RFID chip. If you want to partake of this digital system, this satanic digital system, which will have a deeper false, or Slacky, bear with me here. Let's try to fix something. Which will have, all right, everything your heart, can desire in an illusion. Okay, if you want to be able to, like it says, free and bond, rich and poor. I'll read verse 17, that no man may what? Buy or sell. Okay, save he that had the mark, and buying and selling is the core of an economy. So you want to be able to continue on with what you're doing now, you're gonna have to take chip. That's what everything is boiling down to. All right, it's the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600 threescore and six. Yeah, 666. Okay, so let's continue on this clip here.
To protect yourself. What they're offering to Venezuela is something quite interesting. They're offering to rebuild them using their systems, their tech, their surveillance, integrating in their systems into Venezuela in order to help them rebuild. That is one of the look, we'll help you rebuild, but you need to be using our stuff. And once Israel has totally and completely integrated into Venezuela, they then control a lot of the oil resources that Venezuela has, because their entire systems would be reliant on Israel. They would be beholden to Israel to maintain those systems. They would have to continue being friendly to Israel. Venezuela's actually said that they're going to drop being part of any sort of case against Israel for their genocide, that they're going to not back the ICC anymore. They're going to drop out of that. They're basically doing everything pro-Israel. So back in the day, the United States would kind of leverage a similar system, but we did it using oil. We said everybody is relying on oil. And because they're relying on oil, we just want to make sure that they buy and sell it, that they can only acquire oil in US dollars, essentially. So even though the United States wasn't going to be the one that procured the oil and distributed the oil, the United States could control the oil by saying it all comes through our currency. So that made every country dependent on the United States and didn't want to piss off the United States, or they could end up sanctioned, they could end up blacklisted. This wasn't good for a country. So they always had to stay on the right side of the United States. And that's where true power, that's what true power is. It's whoever controls the foundational infrastructure that other nations require in order to function.
Yep, it's true. All right, and it also reminds me of this precept here. All right, what she's saying is 100% true. So this is Revelation 17 and 17, right? It says, "For Yahweh hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree, right, and give their kingdoms unto the beast until the words of Yahweh Bashim El Shai shall be fulfilled." And they did that during the Bretton Woods system, right? And Nixon took the dollar off, or took the dollar off the gold standard in the 70s, and at 73, they signed that deal with Saudi Arabia and all the different Gulf states as well to sell their oil only in dollars. Okay, now is all about data and information, and all the nations, all right, are partaking in this satanic global digital system. Okay, there's actually a map. What's it called? Let's see. The Club of Rome has their own map. There's another map said Technate. That's really what's being built up. It's a Technate. Okay, Technate. Summary, it says here, the Technate movement was a social movement active in the United States and Canada in the 1930s, which forwarded technocracy. Okay, and we are already in technocracy. Okay, all these technocrats have their hands deep within the government, militarily wise, health wise, financial wise, okay, data, infrastructure. So we're already in a technocracy. Okay. Now what we're moving towards to is an AI assisted technocracy, if you will. Okay. It says Canada in the 1930s, which favored technocracy as a system of government over representative democracy and partisan politics. Okay, let's see. Historians associate this movement with engineer Howard. Okay, I'll get more on this later, but I actually just really want to get the map. Let's see if I get the map here. There we go. Technique of America. So here's a map. And this is North America, right? You got Canada up here, Greenland, United States, right? And then Latin America, all the way up into Panama. Okay. In the Club of Rome, Venezuela is a part of that too. It's like well, they in the Club of Rome, the map is all like zones. That's how they have it divided, zones. But yeah, there's all these maps. You have the technique of America. That's basically what's getting built up. Okay, and it's all surrounded by the MOTB, Mark of the Beast. Okay, let's continue.
And the petrodollar locked in global economies into the U.S., into the U.S. financial system by forcing them to use American currency for oil. So the U.S. petrodollar system succeeded because oil was the indispensable lifeblood of the industrial world. If a country wanted to power its factories or transport goods, it had to acquire U.S. dollars. Well, today, it's not so much about oil.
Slacky. I was going to get this precept, but I just left my mic. Came back. This is Proverbs 26 and 23. In the NLT, all right, it reads, it says, burning lips and a wicked heart are alike. A potsherd covered with silver dross. Slack. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered with silver dross. He that hateth dissembleth with his lips. And that's basically what they're doing with Venezuela. All right. Oh, you had an earthquake. Let's come in. and the term is structurally re-engineer. All right, structural re-engineering. Okay, structural re-engineer and help you, but you have to use our tech, just like she said. Okay, it says, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are seven abominations in his heart. NLT says, smooth words may hide a wicked heart, just as pretty, just as a pretty glaze covers a clay pot. People may cover their hatred with pleasant words, and these devils are full of hatred, especially for Israel. All right, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, but they even hate their own people. People may cover their hatred with pleasant words. Okay, and our people are heavily dominant in Venezuela, but they're deceiving you. They pretend to be kind, but don't believe them. Their hearts are full of many evils. All right. While their hatred may be concealed by trickery, their wrongdoing will be exposed in public. And that's starting with the prophets. All right. Starting with the apostles and the bishops and the elders on down. That's a great millstone. And then you got his own tongue as well as falling upon him, as well as scripture dictates.
People are getting away from that. It's not so much about getting US dollars anymore. It's now about data, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. Those are now the new oil. Countries are reliant on this. A government can survive, a temporary oil shortage by rationing fuel or finding alternative energy sources. However, a modern state cannot function if its electrical grids, if its banking systems, if its defense radars, and government registries are shut down. And if all of that is run on Israeli tech, then you really need the Israelis in order to help you out. So when a country integrates, like Venezuela is now the country that is integrating Israeli technology, such as, if they start integrating like advanced cyber intelligence frameworks or automated border fencing or critical water desalination networks, it is, not just buying a standalone product, it's actually installing a live software ecosystem that requires continuous updates, patches, maintenance, oversight from the parent nation that installed it. And it comes with a kill switch. What we know about the United States and the petrodollar is the kill switch and the power of that kill switch. The United States enforces its will via global financial systems using SWIFT bans, asset.
Exactly, a kill switch. Okay. So whenever they want, when they decide to, just shut off the tech, or regard you as an anti, you know what, and then shut you off. All right, take you out. Okay. So all this is surrounded around again the mark of the beast, man. And these devils are moving quick.
Freezes, sanctions to economically isolate countries that are not in our favor. And now Israel is going to have its own kill switch. It's going to have a digital equivalent of an economic blockade. I mean, they become, if a nation like Venezuela becomes entirely dependent on a single foreign actor for its national security software, anti-drone defense nets, critical infrastructure management, then that actor, aka Israel, gains immense political leverage. So Israel has figured out the new petrodollar. And we saw this also in the bill that's the NDAA that's being passed through Congress right now, with Israel merging a person or a office inside of the Pentagon that is required to seek out Israeli intelligence, seek out Israeli AI systems, data systems, all of these futuristic systems, and is required by law to integrate them into the US military, to seek them out, procure them, acquire them, and integrate them. And why would Israel want that? Because it's the new petrodollar. And they would be able to then control us because they control all of our systems. And so then we are totally and completely, we become a vassal state, much like what we've done in many other countries with the petrodollar. Israel watched us, they saw how we did it, and they figured out what is more valuable than oil at this stage. And they figured out that it's AI, it's data, it's surveillance, it's tech. And now what's interesting is we heard about the NDAA and then wanting to integrate into the United States military, which would make them very powerful, because really what they've done, now look at what's happened in Venezuela. They had the United States do the dirty work, right? We went in, we got the guy, we did the actual military action. They didn't have to lift a finger. We did the military action. And if you recall,
well, yeah, that's why the scriptures say, the least of the flock should draw them out. Okay. And basically, your so-called elected leaders, all right, have sold America out completely to the small hats. All right. So just like the elder Malcolm said, man, America has already has given up its sovereignty. Okay. It has given up its sovereignty. So it's on. All right. It's on, man. This is Proverbs 29 and 4. Okay, Proverbs 29 and 4. It says, the king by judgment establishes the land, but he that receiveth gifts overthrows it. You see? And that's Trump. He's received many gifts from the tiny tops, the little hatters. All right, his whole cabinet is a bunch of billionaire tiny tops. All right, and he's received gifts. And what in turn has happened? America has been completely overthrown and taken over by the worst of the worst when it comes to Esau Edom. NLT says, a just king gives stability to his nation, but one who demands bribes destroys it. You see? Verse 5, to flatter friends is to slay is to lay a trap for their feet. Okay, and that's a digital infrastructure. All right. It says in the King James, a man that flattereth his neighbor spreadeth spreadeth a net for his feet. Okay. And all the flattery that Trump has been getting from BB and all the tiny tots, man, it's all been just to set up, all right, the digital infrastructure in America. Okay, to fully have control over America, which they have now, concerning that bill, the NDAA bill that passed. All right, their tech will be merged with American military, and they'll be able to get in and identify who's anti what and anti you know what, and that's where that persecution is going to come down heavy. Okay, starting with you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Obviously, us as well, the prophets, right? But the Lord's going to be with his elect. Okay, he's going to be with his elect. Let's go from here to Sirach 12. Okay, in the GNT, Sirach 12 and 10. It says, never trust thy enemy, never trust an enemy. His wickedness is as destructive as rust. Watch out and be on guard against him, even if he acts ever so humble. He is like a metal mirror that rusts away if you don't keep it polished. Seat or yeah, seat or yeah, seat an enemy at your right hand. See an enemy at your right hand, which is what Trump has done. Okay, even though they're both Edomites, Esau. All right, they don't care about their own selves. They don't care about their own people. Okay, especially Amalek. And the next thing you know, it says, see an enemy at your right hand, and the next thing you know, he'll be trying to get your own place of honor. Put him next to you, and he will overthrow you. Okay, that's exactly what's happened to America. All right, and they're gonna do it to Canada over here in Canada, and they're probably gonna get Greenland too. Okay, and they already got Venezuela. All right, they're probably gonna get all of Latin America, all because of what? The resources. Okay, but it's also because of the control over the resources and the people therein. Okay, and their main target, once again, is you Israelites. Then you will realize, or us Israelites, okay, then you will realize the truth of my words and be stung with the regret when you remember them. All right. Well, yeah, I'll just read this. It says, no one feels sorry for snake charmers or wild animal tamers who get bitten, right? And nobody will feel sorry for you if you run around with sinners and get involved in their wrongdoing. Okay, which both parties are sinners, of course. They're the people of perdition. But what has America been doing? Running around, getting involved in matters that have nothing to do with them. But that's prophecy. Starting wars. They went into Venezuela, took it over. Now the IDF is going in there helping out so-called with uh, structure re-engineering. Right? They're both working hand in hand. The least of the flock should draw them out, man. And you Americans, man, all right, Babylonians, there's nothing you can do about it. All right, but this is a beautiful thing too. At the same time, it's going to cause these Babylonians, all right, to get in an uproar, okay, which is prophecy, civil unrest, right, national intrigues, right. The people are not going to regard their kings, no, their princes. Let me see if let me get that actually. People are not going to regard their kings and princes. Why? Because they find out that their leaders have sold them out. All right, they've sold them out to foreigners who can care two shits about them. Heck, they think you're the problem. You're burping too much, farting too much. All right, they want to get rid. Remember, they want to get rid of a lot of people. 500 was it 500 million? Okay. Um, One more time, no longer. This is second Ezra 15. Yeah, it says woe and 14. Woe to the world, all right, and them that dwell therein, for the sword and the destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands, right? For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor their princes, okay? Your president and all the different government heads or government leaders, okay, in every category of government. They've all sold you up, all right? And people, and people, and Esau, Edom is waking up to that. That you've been sold out by your own people, all right, to other Edomites, which are the head of the serpent, Amalek, that are the worst of the worst. Okay, and everybody's waking up to the fact that these Amalekites are the worst of the worst. Nor princes and the courses of their actions shall stand in their power. Yeah, you're gonna have a completely divided nation. Right? A man should desire to go into a city and should not be able to, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Okay, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods. This is what these Amalekites are getting ready to do, man, via their tech. And you people are going to be doing it among one another. Okay, because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. That's why you're going to be doing it. Okay, let's go back here and finish this up.
There were some reports coming out that the Israelis were somehow involved in Venezuela. They offered some intel that was partly their intel that helped capture Maduro. And again, it was like, why are the Israelis involved? Well, now you know why. Now it's all coming together because we saw a delegation of IDF show up and say, "Oh, you just had a big earthquake," which makes me suspicious of the earthquake. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, did they figure out how to like put a nuke underground? You know, like did they take a sub over there and propel a nuke underground that caused an earthquake? I mean, at this point, anything's possible because look at how much they're benefiting. I mean, they went and they said, "Okay, we're going to get Maduro out. We're going to help you out with that." Then an earthquake befalls on Venezuela. And suddenly the IDF, the Israelis show up and say, oh, terrible, what happened to you here? But you know, we can help you rebuild. But if we're going to help you rebuild, then the requirement is you have to rebuild using all of our tech. And then guess who controls Venezuela? It's the Israelis. And since the Israelis are controlling the American military because they're going to have the American military by the balls because they also run our military tech, then now they've got their own fighting force that they don't even have. So they don't even have to sacrifice any of their own people, just Americans, to go around the world deposing leaders so that they can or causing catastrophe so that they can go in, integrate their tech into the country, and effectively control them. And say, oh, you know, you wouldn't want your infrastructure to go down. Oh, gee, you wouldn't want your defense networks to go down. Oh, gee, you wouldn't want any of that to happen. It's very clever. But now the picture is coming to full fruition now that we've seen, you know, the IDF and the congressional leaders showing up there, and they're, you know, these giant Zionists. And it's like, what in the world would Israel want with Venezuela? Well, they want the resources. They want the footprint in the Western Hemisphere. They want the control, and you can't dismiss them as some small country. The United Kingdom is a small country. Japan is a small country. They were able to erect empires, and so it is Israel doesn't want to just, you know, the guise is self-defense. The guise is, oh, it's for survival. We're just trying to survive. We're just self-defense. It's just self-defense. It's survival. That's just the excuse they know they can use in order to keep us all sympathetic to them while we're not actually paying attention to what they're really doing, which is undermining the U.S. hegemony, pretending to be our greatest ally while they're doing it, stabbing us in the back, and taking all the power for themselves.
And also building up the digital infrastructure, the satanic digital infrastructure, all right, which the pinnacle of it is the mark of the beast. Slacking. The pinnacle of it is the mark of the beast, all right, which is the RFID chip.
And that is exactly what they're doing in Venezuela. They're going to gain access to those oil reserves. They're going to have the United States. This is just the first testing ground. They're going to have the United States take out more leaders in other countries. The Israelis are going to come whisking in. They're going to demand that their tech be used for everything. And they essentially control that country way more than the United States does with military and a petrodollar. Because Israel could say after a while, well, you don't even need the US military here. So if it's, well, the US says, well, no, we're here defending you, so you need us. We're the ones actually in power. And the Israelis says, well, actually, we're the ones actually in power because we have all the tech. And the Americans and the Israelis fight over who's actually in power in a country because one is actually doing the military defense and the other one's doing all the tech and surveillance. Well, eventually the tech and surveillance wins because the tech and surveillance says, well, we are also a military because we got laser weapons and we've got all kinds of crazy stuff that we can do. We don't need actual traditional bombs and all that stuff anymore. That's old school. That's like fighting with a musket. So that's where this is headed. And it's interesting that I think the big question for many people is why Venezuela, why Latin America? What is Israel's goal in these countries? They've been successfully, it seems like, meddling in elections, getting in there and actually turning the entirety of South America pro-Israel. Why would they do that? Some people say, well, it's just because, that area of the world's been so against Israel that they want to change the narrative. That is not what they're doing. They're not just looking to change the narrative. They don't care what you or I think of Israel. They don't care what we think of them. It's not about, it's a PR thing. It's not a PR thing. This is a control thing. The Israelis have created the new petrodollar. They have now implemented it up against the United States in our Congress, and they're implementing it again in Venezuela. And so they are effectively building Pax Judaica. And once again, the prediction of Professor Zhang seems to be,
Forget that guy. All right, it's going to be, let Scripture say it, then they should know a prophet was among them. Right. So let's get this here. All right. Again, like I said, the whole purpose is easy, man. We've been telling you people what the purpose has been for decades, starting the apostles, all right, and the bishops and others on down. And the purpose is to chip everybody, but at the same time, get rid of a lot of people. All right, get rid of a lot of people. This is Micah 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in their power. It is in their power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence and houses. And this is exactly what they did with Venezuela, right? They coveted that land and they took it by violence. They used America as a proxy, right? America is the proxy of, tiny tops. All right. And now they're swooping in and they are structurally re-engineering Venezuela, making it into or adding it into the satanic digital infrastructure, right? This global system that they're creating, okay? And it says, and houses, and take them away, so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. That's right, okay? And the ones that they want to oppress the most is Israel, okay? Starting with the prophets on down. Let's go from here, okay? We'll get this Isaiah chapter 10. Okay, and I'm gonna start at 13 in the NLT. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 13. It says, He boasted, by my own powerful arm have I done this. With my own shrewd wisdom I planned it. Right? I have broken down the defenses of nations and carried off their treasures. I have knocked down their kings like a bull. I have robbed their nest of riches, right? Resources. Okay. And gathered up kingdoms as a farmer gathers eggs. Right. And this is really ultimately the thought process of the top wicked elite, not the ones that we see on TV, the ones that we don't see. Right? The top wicked elite, the bankers. All right. The ones that we see are just their stooges. Kingdom as a farmer gathers eggs. No one can ever flap a wing against me or utter a peep of protest. And that's what it's going to come down to, right? Famine of the word. You want no one to utter a peep of protest. Okay. It already started here in Canada. All right. And it's speedily coming for everywhere else. But can the ox boast greater power than the person who uses it? Is a saw greater than the person who saws? Can a rod strike unless a hand moves it? The answer is obviously no. Can a wooden cane walk by itself? Therefore, the Lord Yahweh of heaven's armies, will send a plague among Assyria, among Assyria's proud troops. Okay, and ultimately that plague is going to be what? The nuclear missiles. Okay, thermonuclear missiles alongside with the chariots, right? Which is so-called UFOs, right? The armies of the Most High. Okay, because you think you're the one doing this, but the Lord is using you, all right, via Satan on the left-hand side to fulfill His will. Okay, and it's not going to work. All of it is going to come down. All of it's going to end, all right, with Babylon the Great crashing and burning. You small hats, all right, or tiny tops, all right, being put into slavery, being put into captivity. Okay, under the Israelites, the ones you love to hate the most. Okay, starting with the elect. The Lord Yahweh will consume Assyria's glory. Read 16. Let me just actually, no, I skipped 2 verses. Verse 16. Therefore, the Lord Yahweh of heaven's armies, will send a plague among Assyria's proud troops, and a flaming fire will consume its glory. Exactly. The Lord Yahweh, the light of Israel, will be a fire, and the Holy One will be a flame, right? That's Yahweh Shai. He will devour the thorns and briars with fire, burning up the enemy in a single night. All right, that's the end all be all behind this devil's running around and plotting and scheming for his satanic digital global system. It's all going to come to naught. Okay. There is more I wanted to see this video. I'll bring up this video real quick, just share a little bit. This is from the documentary of the future. Okay. It says Technate echoes from the past, Greenland, Canada, and the Great America. Okay. Fair use, fair use, fair use. I'm not receiving any monetization for this video whatsoever. I'm only sharing this video for educational purposes only. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
Depression of the 1930s. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, amid economic collapse and despair, a bold radical idea took root, the technate. Posed superstate, where scientists, engineers, and technicians would replace politicians and run society with pure scientific efficiency. No more money system, no waste, no inequality, just energy accounting and rational planning for abundance. Led by engineer Howard Scott, Technocracy Inc. emerged in 1933, promising to end the chaos of capitalism through expert rule. Hundreds of thousands joined across the US and Canada, drawn to the promise of a waste-free, scientifically managed society. Central to their vision was the Technate of America, a vast, self-sufficient continental empire governed by technical experts alone. From the North Pole to Panama, including Greenland for strategic resources and defense, designed to be impregnable and independent. The movement spread strongly in Canada, where local leaders organized farmers and workers around this utopian technical dream. In Saskatchewan, chiropractor and aviator Joshua Haldeman became a key leader, promoting technocracy as the path to rational governance. But World War II changed everything. The Canadian government banned Technocracy Inc. in 1940, suspecting subversion against the war effort. Haldeman was briefly detained. The movement went underground and faded after the war, its radical ideas seemingly buried. Yet one family line kept the flame alive, passing from grandfather to grandson across generations. Elon Musk, grandson of Joshua Haldeman, carries echoes of that vision in his relentless drive for efficiency and innovation. From radical government streamlining to AI dominance and cryptocurrency, principles of technical optimization over traditional politics.
Mr. President, Doge will optimize federal operations for greater efficiency. As head of Doge under President Trump, Musk wielded direct influence over federal efficiency and policy. I agree. Tremendous potential.
Proposals to acquire Greenland, deepen ties with Canada, secure Panama and beyond, mirroring the old technate boundaries. Broader tech oligarchy, Musk, Thiel, Altman, Zuckerberg, shapes AI, crypto, and defense through massive funding and access. From Depression-era maps drawn in red ink to today's geopolitical maneuvers, the echoes are unmistakable and growing louder. Crises like climate change, resource wars, and tech rivalry with China revive calls for centralized, expert-driven solutions. Is this Technocracy 2.0, where big tech fuses with state power, prioritizing algorithmic efficiency above democratic checks? Modern fusion of technology and governance is redefining borders, power, and sovereignty in ways the 1930s could only imagine. The original technate dreamed of a great America ruled by science, control through knowledge, not votes.
Yeah, so they're just recycling, all right, and repackaging old ideas, right, for now.
Today, as tech elites merge with political power, we must urgently ask ourselves that same question.
Okay, so let's get this here real quick in chat. And I got one more piece and that'll be it. Says here, technocracy. What's technocracy? So we're currently in a technocracy. Number two, it says technocracy. A technocracy is a system of government or administration where experts, scientists, engineers, economists, and technical specialists make many of the important decisions instead of politicians being the primary decision makers, right? And these guys tell you what you should eat. You're doing too much. The air, you're pooping too much. Your carbon footprint. You walk around too much. Everything is according to what they dictate. Okay. Um, it says let people with technical expertise run society based on evidence, data, and efficiency. A technocracy emphasizes science, engineering, data analysis, planning, efficiencies, expert knowledge. Right. So this is what we're currently in right now. But you read a technate, right? We went into that basically with that video. Resource energy. I'll just read this a little real quick. It says a technate is a proposed society where engineers and scientists manage the economy. Resources are distributed according to technical planning rather than traditional market forces. Okay, production is based on available resources and energy. The economy is coordinated scientifically instead of primarily through prices and political negotiation. Right, the technique was envisioned as a complete redesign of society, not just government using more technology. Right, yeah, it goes further than that because they're not going to need government to do that. AI will just do its own thing. AI can create more AIs. All right. I'll just read this point here. It says AI making binding decisions with minimal human oversight. If AI systems are given significant authority to make or determine government's decisions, some scholars might describe this as an AI-assisted technocracy or a algorithmic form of government. However, there is no universal accepted political term for a government ruled by AI itself. Yeah, so yeah, so you get the point. All right, I got this precept here. I'm gonna close out with this here. Psalms, yeah, we're close, man. We're close. We're very, very close. You know, Lowell William, you can see the implementing of the MOTB, before 2027. These guys are moving, man. Okay. In terms of America, we're waiting for that. Well, and even globally, but over here in North America, we're waiting for that global or that Black Swan event. Okay, that major event that's gonna force all the nations to partake of this system, right? Which has already been planned by them, but most important by Yahweh Shai. Okay. I'm gonna read this in NLT. This is Psalms 36:1. It says, for the choir director, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, sin whispers to the wicked, deep within their hearts. Okay. They have no fear of Yahweh at all. In their Yahweh Shai at all. In their blind conceit, they cannot see how wicked they really are. Okay. Everything they say is crooked and deceitful. They refuse to act wisely or do good. Okay. Which good can come out of AI, but look who's in rulership, the wicked. They lie awake at night hatching sinful plans. They lie awake at night hatching sinful plans. Their actions are never good. They make no attempt to turn from evil. Of course not. Your unfailing love, O Lord, is as vast as the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches beyond the clouds. Right. So the point there really was in from verse 1 to 4. Okay. And hey man, this is an exciting thing because the Lord is going to be with his elect. This is why, I'm constantly talking about while there's still time, develop your relationship with the Heavenly Father through his son Yahushua. Okay. Anyway, that's it with that. Lord willing, this is straightforward and edifying to the elect of the nation of Israel. I'm going to close by giving all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, HaKadash, and double honor to the apostles, bishops, and elders of great most don't rule well. And I've taught this word in truth and sincerity. Peace and mercy to the elect, starting with 144,000. That's also pushing his word in truth and sincerity across the four corners of the earth. All right, and as well as the rest of the elect, peace and mercy to you and your household. Ball, Kwan Sha'Allah. All right, and shalom to the elect, man. Stay up, stay strong, and keep developing that relationship. Shalom.